My name is Ashley Miller. I'm 30 years old, and I never imagined that one day my own mother would throw me out of the house like I was some stranger who had overstayed their welcome. But here I am, sitting in my car outside a Walmart parking lot in Houston, Texas, staring at my phone screen with tears blurring my vision, reading the most heartless message I've ever received. Don't come back. We changed locks. That's it. No explanation. No, I'm sorry. No, we need to talk. Just those 6 words that shattered everything I thought I knew about family, about love, about the woman who brought me into this world. Let me back up a little, because this story didn't start with that text message. It started 3 months ago when I walked in on my husband, Brian Walker, having sex with my best friend Jessica on our kitchen counter. Yes, the same counter where we used to have breakfast together every Sunday morning, where he used to kiss me goodbye before work, where we'd plan our future over coffee and toast. I remember standing there in the doorway, groceries still in my hands, watching my entire life crumble in real time. The bag of oranges I was carrying hit the floor and rolled everywhere, and that sound, that stupid, mundane sound of fruit bouncing on hardwood, is what finally made them notice me standing there. Brian didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. He just pulled up his pants and said, "Ashley, we need to talk." Like I was the one interrupting something important instead of catching my husband cheating in our own home. Jessica, on the other hand, couldn't even look at me. She grabbed her clothes and ran out the back door like a coward, leaving me to deal with the aftermath of her betrayal alone. 7 years of friendship, gone, just like that. The divorce proceedings were ugly. Brian tried to claim that I was the problem, that I was emotionally unavailable, and too focused on work. He painted me as this cold, distant wife who drove him into another woman's arms. His lawyer was good, really good, and somehow they managed to make it seem like the affair was somehow my fault. I lost the house. I lost half of our savings. I lost my sense of self-worth. But worst of all, I lost my faith in people. When someone you've shared a bed with for 8 years, someone who promised to love you in sickness and in health, for better or worse, can look you in the eye and betray you so completely, it makes you question everything you thought you knew about human nature. After the divorce was finalized, I had nowhere to go. My apartment hunting in Houston was a disaster. Everything decent was either too expensive or already taken. I was sleeping on my friend Monica's couch, but I could tell her patience was wearing thin. Her husband kept making comments about temporary guests becoming permanent problems, and I knew I was overstaying my welcome. That's when I swallowed my pride and called my mother. Margaret Miller and I have always had a complicated relationship. After my father Thomas died when I was 17, she became this hard, bitter woman who seemed to blame the world for her misfortune. Dad was the glue that held our family together. He was patient where she was sharp, understanding where she was judgmental, loving where she was distant. I was Daddy's girl. There's no denying that. Thomas Miller was a mechanic who worked with his hands but had the heart of a poet. He used to tell me bedtime stories that he made up on the spot, always featuring a brave princess who saved herself and everyone else too. "You don't need anyone to rescue you, Ashley," he'd say, tucking me in. "You've got everything you need right here." And he'd tap my forehead, then my chest. When he had his heart attack, I was a senior in high school with dreams of going to college, maybe studying journalism or creative writing. I had already been accepted to the University of Texas with a partial scholarship, but Mom was a mess. She couldn't work, couldn't function, couldn't even get out of bed most days, so I made a choice. I deferred college and got a job at a local insurance office to help pay the bills. I told myself it was temporary, just until Mom got back on her feet. But temporary turned into 1 year, then 2, then 5. Before I knew it, I was 25 years old, still living at home, still taking care of my mother who seemed determined to stay broken. That's actually how I met Brian. He came into the insurance office where I worked, needing coverage for his new business. He was charming, successful, and he made me feel like maybe there was still time to have the life I'd always wanted. When he proposed, I thought I was finally getting my happily ever after. Mom seemed almost relieved when I moved out to start my married life, like she was finally free of the burden of having me around, taking care of her, reminding her of Dad and all the dreams we used to have as a family. But now, with my marriage in ruins and my life falling apart, I needed her. For the first time since Dad died, I needed my mother to be there for me the way I'd been there for her all those years. "Mom," I said when she answered the phone, my voice shaking. "It's over with Brian. The divorce is final, and I I don't have anywhere to go. Can I come home? Just for a little while, until I get back on my feet. There was a long pause on the other end of the line, so long that I thought maybe the call had dropped. Ashley, she finally said, and her voice sounded different somehow, colder than usual, if that was even possible. You can't just run home every time life gets hard. You made your choice when you married that man and moved out. You're a grown woman now. Mom, please, I begged, and I hate how desperate I sounded. I just need some time to figure things out. I'll pay rent. I'll help around the house. Fine, she cut me off. But this is temporary, Ashley. I'm not running a charity here. Those words stung, but I was so grateful to have somewhere to go that I ignored the coldness in her voice. I told myself that she was just being practical, that maybe this was her way of showing tough love. I moved back into my childhood bedroom 2 weeks ago. It felt strange, sleeping in the same bed where I used to dream about my future, surrounded by posters of bands I used to love and books I read in high school. Everything was exactly the same, like time had stopped the day I moved out. Mom and I settled into an uncomfortable routine. I'd get up early, make coffee for both of us, and try to make small talk over breakfast. She'd respond with one-word answers and leave the room as soon as she finished eating. I'd go to work at my new job, a temporary position at a marketing firm that barely paid enough to cover my car payment, and come home to find her watching TV in the living room, acting like I was invisible. It wasn't the warm homecoming I'd hoped for, but it wasn't unbearable either. I told myself things would get better once we both adjusted to the new arrangement. Then yesterday happened. I had to work late, helping my boss prepare for a client presentation. When I finally got home around 9 p.m., the house was dark, and Mom's car wasn't in the driveway. I figured she'd gone to her book club or out with her sister Linda, so I made myself a sandwich and went to bed early. This morning, I woke up to 3 missed calls from my mother and that text message that changed everything. Don't come back. We changed locks. I called her immediately, my hands shaking as I dialed her number. The number you have dialed has been disconnected, the automated voice informed me. She'd changed her phone number too. I drove to the house, my childhood home, the place where I took my first steps and said my first words, where Dad used to push me on the tire swing in the backyard, and found exactly what she'd warned me about. New locks on the front door, new deadbolt on the back. My key didn't work anywhere. I pounded on the door until my knuckles were raw, calling her name, begging her to let me in, to at least explain why she was doing this to me. The neighbors started peeking out their windows, and I realized I was making a scene that would probably end up being gossip fodder for weeks. That's when I noticed the pile of garbage bags on the front porch. My things, my clothes, my books, my laptop, my framed photos, everything I owned in the world, stuffed into black trash bags like it was actual garbage. There was a note taped to one of the bags, written in Mom's familiar handwriting. You've been nothing but a burden since your father died. I'm done enabling your failures. Don't contact me again. I sat down on those porch steps and cried harder than I'd cried since Dad's funeral. 13 years of sacrifice, of putting my dreams on hold to take care of her, of being the daughter she needed me to be, and this is how she repaid me, with cruelty that cut deeper than Brian's betrayal ever could. At least Brian was just a husband who turned out to be a disappointment. But this was my mother, the woman who was supposed to love me unconditionally, no matter what, the woman I'd given up everything for. Now I'm sitting in this parking lot, surrounded by garbage bags full of my life, with nowhere to go and no one to call. Monica's couch isn't an option anymore. Her husband made it clear that I'd worn out my welcome there too. I have maybe $300 in my checking account, not enough for a security deposit on an apartment, barely enough for a cheap motel room for a few nights. I keep staring at that text message, reading it over and over again, trying to find some hidden meaning, some clue about what I did wrong. But there's nothing there except coldness and finality. Don't come back. We changed locks. 6 words that erased 30 years of being someone's daughter. The worst part is that I can't even grieve properly, because part of me isn't surprised. Deep down, I always knew that Mom blamed me for something. Maybe she blamed me for Dad's death, for not being able to save him somehow. Maybe she blamed me for never going to college, for not becoming the successful daughter she could brag about to her friends. Maybe she blamed me for existing at all, for being a constant reminder of the life she'd lost when Dad died. But I thought that despite all that, somewhere underneath the resentment and bitterness, she still loved me. I thought that when I really needed her, when I had nowhere else to turn, she'd remember that I was her daughter, and that family was supposed to mean something. I was wrong. The sun is starting to set, and I need to figure out where I'm going to sleep tonight. The temperature is supposed to drop into the 40s. Too cold to sleep in my car safely. I'm scrolling through my phone, looking for emergency shelters or cheap motels, when it starts to ring. Unknown number with a local area code. Normally I wouldn't answer. Probably a telemarketer or someone trying to sell me something I can't afford. But right now, any human contact feels better than sitting alone with my thoughts in this parking lot. Hello? I answer, my voice still hoarse from crying. Is this Ashley Miller? Yes. Who's calling? This is Robert Robinson from Robinson & Associates. I've been trying to reach you regarding your father's estate. My father's estate? I almost laugh, but it comes out as more of a choke. I'm sorry, Mr. Robinson, but I think you have the wrong person. My father died 13 years ago, and there wasn't any estate to speak of. We could barely afford his funeral. I understand your confusion, Miss Miller, but I assure you I have the right person. Your father was Thomas Miller, born March 15, 1965, married to Margaret Susan Miller, correct? The specificity of the information makes my stomach drop. Yes, but I represent the legal firm that's been handling certain aspects of your father's affairs since his passing. There are some matters we need to discuss in person. Are you available to meet tomorrow morning? I look around the Walmart parking lot, at the garbage bags containing my entire life, at the darkening sky that promises another night of having nowhere to sleep. Mr. Robinson, I don't mean to be rude, but if my father had some kind of estate, don't you think my mother and I would have known about it 13 years ago? That's exactly what we need to discuss, Miss Miller. Your father left very specific instructions about when and how certain information was to be revealed. I'm afraid I can't go into details over the phone, but I can tell you that this concerns a substantial inheritance that was meant for you. The word, substantial, echoes in my head. I'm probably grasping at straws here, probably about to be disappointed by some clerical error or scam. But what do I have to lose at this point? Okay, I say finally. Where's your office? Downtown Houston, on Main Street. Can you be there at 10 a.m.? I agree and hang up, more confused than ever. Dad was a mechanic who worked at Jerry's auto shop for 20 years. We lived paycheck to paycheck, especially after he got sick. I remember Mom having to choose between paying the electric bill and buying groceries some months. What kind of substantial inheritance could he possibly have left? But right now, I need to focus on more immediate concerns, like where I'm going to sleep tonight. I end up at a rundown motel on the outskirts of town, the kind of place that rents rooms by the hour and doesn't ask too many questions. $45 for the night, which leaves me with barely enough money for gas and maybe a hamburger tomorrow. The room smells like cigarettes and disinfectant. The carpet is stained with things I don't want to identify, and the lock on the door doesn't inspire confidence. But it's warm, it's dry, and it's mine for the next 8 hours. I pile my garbage bags in the corner and sit on the bed, which creaks ominously under my weight. The springs are shot, and there's a suspicious dark stain on the comforter, but I'm too exhausted to care. I haven't eaten since breakfast, but the thought of food makes my stomach turn. Instead, I find myself thinking about Dad, really thinking about him, not just the sanitized memories I usually allow myself to revisit. Thomas Miller was a complex man. Everyone loved him. Customers would specifically request him at the shop, neighbors would come to him for advice, and I never heard anyone say a bad word about him. But there were things about him that didn't quite add up, things I was too young to understand at the time, like the way he would sometimes disappear for hours on Sunday afternoons, claiming he was going for a drive to clear his head, or how he'd get phone calls late at night and take them in the garage, speaking in hushed tones that I could never quite make out through the walls. Mom used to get annoyed about the phone calls. "And tell your mysterious friends to call at decent hours, Thomas," she'd say, but he'd just smile and kiss her forehead and promise to handle it. There was also the safety deposit box. I only found out about it by accident when I was 16 and had to take some papers to the bank for Mom. The teller mentioned that Dad had been in earlier that week to check on his box, and when I mentioned it at dinner, both my parents got quiet and changed the subject. At the time, I figured it was just important papers, insurance policies, maybe some savings bonds. Every adult had mysterious banking business that kids weren't supposed to worry about. But now, sitting in this depressing motel room, I'm wondering what else might have been in that box. I try calling Mom's new number one more time, even though I know it won't work. I need answers, and she's the only person who might have them. But the automated message confirms what I already know. The number has been disconnected. How does someone just erase their own daughter from their life so completely? It's like she planned this whole thing. Like she was just waiting for the right moment to cut me loose forever. I think about all the sacrifices I made over the years. Giving up college wasn't the only thing. I turned down job opportunities that would have required me to move to other cities because I didn't want to leave Mom alone. I ended relationships with men who wanted me to focus more on our future together instead of constantly worrying about my mother's needs. When I met Brian, one of the things that attracted me to him was that he seemed to understand my sense of duty to my family. Family comes first, he used to say. That's what makes you special, Ashley. Not many people your age would sacrifice so much for their parents. Now I'm wondering if that's exactly why he thought I'd be easy to manipulate. Maybe he saw a woman who was used to putting everyone else's needs before her own. Someone who wouldn't fight too hard for what she deserved. The irony is devastating. I spent 13 years taking care of a mother who apparently saw me as nothing but a burden, and 8 years married to a man who saw me as nothing but a convenience. And now here I am, alone in a seedy motel room, with nothing to show for 30 years of trying to be the daughter and wife everyone else needed me to be. I must have fallen asleep at some point, because I wake up to sunlight streaming through the thin curtains and the sound of traffic outside. My neck is stiff from sleeping sitting up against the headboard, and my mouth tastes like disappointment and cheap coffee from yesterday. The clock on the nightstand says 8:30 a.m. I have just over an hour to get downtown for my appointment with Mr. Robinson. I dig through one of the garbage bags to find something appropriate to wear to a lawyer's office. Most of my professional clothes are wrinkled from being stuffed into the bags, but I managed to find a black blazer and gray pants that don't look too terrible. I use the motel's tiny bathroom to wash my face and try to make myself look presentable, but the harsh fluorescent lighting isn't doing me any favors. I look exhausted, which I am, and broken, which I definitely am. The drive downtown gives me time to think about what I'm walking into. Best case scenario, Dad somehow managed to put away some money that Mom and I never knew about, and Mr. Robinson is about to hand me enough to get back on my feet. Worst case scenario, this is some kind of scam or mistake, and I'm about to waste what little time and energy I have left chasing false hope. But even if it is false hope, it's better than the reality I'm currently living. At least for the next hour, I can pretend that maybe Dad found a way to take care of me, even from beyond the grave. Robinson and Associates is located in one of those sleek downtown office buildings that makes you feel underdressed just walking through the lobby. The elevator is mirrored, which means I get to watch myself look nervous and out of place for 15 floors. The law office itself is all dark wood and expensive-looking furniture, the kind of place that charges by the hour just for breathing their air. The receptionist, a polished woman in her 50s with perfect makeup and a smile that doesn't reach her eyes, asks me to have a seat in the waiting area. I sit in a leather chair that probably costs more than I make in a month and try not to fidget. There are law journals and business magazines fanned out on the coffee table, along with what looks like a very expensive bottle of water that I'm afraid to touch. Miss Miller, a man in his 60s appears in the doorway, wearing a tailored suit and an expression that suggests he deals with much more important matters than whatever brought me here today. I'm Robert Robinson. Thank you for coming. His handshake is firm but brief, and he leads me down a hallway lined with portraits of stern-looking men in suits. His office is even more intimidating than the waiting room. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a massive mahogany desk, windows that offer a commanding view of downtown Houston. Please, sit, he says, gesturing to one of 2 chairs facing his desk. He settles into his own chair and opens a thick file folder. Before we begin, I need to verify your identity. Can you show me a driver's license? I hand over my license, and he studies it carefully before making a note in the file. Excellent. Now, Miss Miller, I'm sure you're wondering why you're here. Your father came to see me about 6 months before his death. He was concerned about his health. Apparently his doctor had warned him about his heart condition, and he wanted to make some arrangements. What kind of arrangements? Mr. Robinson pulls out a document and slides it across the desk. This is a trust agreement that your father established. He deposited a significant sum of money with very specific instructions about when and how it should be distributed. I stare at the papers, but the legal language might as well be written in a foreign language. I don't understand. If Dad had money to put in a trust, why were we struggling so much after he died? Why did I have to give up college to help support my mother? That's where it gets complicated, Mr. Robinson says, and for the first time since I walked into his office, his professional demeanor softens slightly. Your father's instructions were very clear. The money was not to be released until you reached the age of 30, and only if certain conditions were met. What conditions? He flips through several pages in the file. The trust stipulates that you must be financially independent from your mother, and that she must have demonstrated, and I quote, that she is capable of caring for herself without using Ashley as an emotional or financial crutch. The words hit me like a physical blow. He knew, Dad knew that Mom would. Your father was a very perceptive man, Miss Miller. He loved your mother deeply, but he also recognized her tendency to lean too heavily on you. He was worried that if something happened to him, she would prevent you from living your own life. I think about all those years of putting Mom's needs first, of turning down opportunities, of staying home instead of building my own future. Dad had seen it coming. Somehow, he'd known exactly what would happen. So this trust, it was like insurance, to make sure I'd eventually be free to live my own life. Exactly. The trust was designed to activate when you demonstrated independence from your mother's control. Recent events suggest that condition has been met. I almost laugh at the bitter irony. Recent events. You mean my mother throwing me out and changing the locks? Mr. Robinson nods gravely. I'm sorry about the circumstances, Miss Miller, but your father anticipated that your mother might eventually push you away, rather than allow you to grow. He saw it as the only way she'd ever let you go. How did you know? About what happened with my mother? Your mother contacted me yesterday morning. She wanted to know if there were any legal obligations preventing her from, as she put it, evicting an adult child who had become a financial burden. During that conversation, it became clear that the conditions of your father's trust had been met. The room feels like it's spinning. My mother called a lawyer to make sure she could legally throw me out. She didn't just decide to change the locks in a moment of anger. She planned it. She made sure it was legal. She treated me like a tenant she wanted to evict, not like a daughter who needed help. Miss Miller, are you all right? I realize I've been sitting in silence for several minutes, just staring at the trust documents. How much money are we talking about? Mr. Robinson opens another folder and pulls out a bank statement. He slides it across the desk, and I have to read the number 3 times before it sinks in. $1.7 million. I don't understand, I whisper. Dad was a mechanic. We shopped at thrift stores. Mom bought generic groceries and clipped coupons. Where did this money come from? Your father was indeed a mechanic, but he was also quite savvy about investments. He started small, putting away $20 or $30 a week, and he had a gift for picking winning stocks. Over 20 years, those small investments grew substantially. But why didn't he tell us? Why did we struggle if he had this money? Mr. Robinson leans back in his chair, choosing his words carefully. Your father believed that people should earn their way in life. He didn't want this money to make you lazy or entitled, and he was particularly concerned about your mother's relationship with money. He felt that if she knew about the investments, she would become dependent on them, rather than learning to stand on her own feet. I think about all the nights I worked late at the insurance office, all the overtime shifts I picked up to help pay Mom's bills, all the times I ate ramen noodles for dinner so I could send her money for groceries. Dad was sitting on nearly $2 million, and he let me sacrifice my 20s to take care of a woman he knew was using me. I know this is a lot to process, Mr. Robinson continues, and I understand if you're feeling angry about the timing, but your father truly believed this was the best way to ensure your long-term happiness and independence. Angry doesn't begin to cover what I'm feeling. I'm furious. I'm devastated. I'm relieved. I'm grateful. I'm confused. It's like every emotion I'm capable of feeling is hitting me at once, and I don't know which one to focus on. There's more, Mr. Robinson says gently. The house. What house? Your childhood home. Your father never put it in your mother's name. It was always held in trust, with the same conditions as the money. As of yesterday, when your mother effectively terminated your residence there, ownership transfers to you. I stare at him, my mouth open but no words coming out. The locks she changed them on your house, Miss Miller. She has no legal right to be there. I'm sitting in Mr. Robinson's office, staring at bank statements and property deeds that prove my entire life has been built on lies, when my phone buzzes with a text message. Without thinking, I glance down at it. It's from Brian. Heard through the grapevine that your mom kicked you out. If you need somewhere to stay, Jessica and I have a spare room. No hard feelings, right? We could all be adults about this. I show Mr. Robinson the message, and his eyebrows raise nearly to his hairline. That's remarkably tone-deaf, even for an ex-husband. Jessica is the woman he cheated on me with, I explain, and then I start laughing. Not happy laughter, the kind of manic, borderline hysterical laughter that happens when your brain can't process any more absurdity. He wants me to rent a room from them. My ex-husband and his mistress want to be my landlords. I take it you won't be accepting their generous offer. I delete the message without responding and turn my attention back to the documents spread across Mr. Robinson's desk. So let me make sure I understand this correctly. My father knew that my mother would eventually throw me out. He prepared for it by setting aside nearly $2 million and making sure I'd inherit the house, and he never told either of us about any of this. That's correct. And yesterday, when my mother called to ask about evicting me, you knew that her doing so would trigger the release of the trust. I suspected it might. Yes, the timing was fortuitous. I lean back in the expensive leather chair and close my eyes. I don't know whether to be grateful or furious. Part of me feels like Dad manipulated all of us. He could have prevented 13 years of struggle with one conversation. Your father wrestled with that decision extensively, Mr. Robinson says quietly. He came to see me several times before his death, always asking the same questions. Was he doing the right thing? Would you forgive him? Would you understand that he was trying to protect you from a lifetime of being taken advantage of? What did you tell him? I told him that parents rarely get the luxury of knowing whether their decisions are right until long after it's too late to change them. But I also told him that his motives were pure, even if the execution was complicated. I open my eyes and look at the property deed with my name on it. My mother has been living in my house for 13 years, treating it like it was hers, and I've been paying her bills and buying her groceries to help her keep the family home. Yes, she knew, didn't she? She had to have known that Dad never put the house in her name. Mr. Robinson hesitates, which tells me everything I need to know. She knew, I repeat, this time as a statement rather than a question. Your mother was present when your father signed his will. She was aware of the trust arrangements, although she may not have understood the full implications at the time. Grief can cloud judgment, and people often don't pay attention to legal details when they're mourning. But I'm thinking about yesterday morning, about how quickly she responded when I asked if I could come home after work, about how she had my phone number changed before I even got that text message, about the way she had all my belongings packed up and waiting on the porch like she'd been planning this for weeks. She's been waiting for this, I realize. All these years, she's been waiting for me to turn 30 so she could kick me out and I'd have somewhere to land. She's been counting on Dad's money to clean up the mess of throwing away her own daughter. Miss Miller, no. Think about it. She calls you yesterday to ask about evicting me, right? But she already knew about the trust. She knew that if she kicked me out, I'd inherit everything. She's been planning this. Mr. Robinson pulls off his glasses and cleans them carefully, a gesture that seems designed to buy him time to think. I can't speak to your mother's motivations, Miss Miller. I can only tell you what your father intended. What Dad intended was for me to be free. But what Mom intended was to use me for as long as it was convenient, then dump me the moment I had somewhere else to go. The anger is building now, hot and clean and focused. For 13 years, I thought I was being a good daughter. I thought I was honoring my father's memory by taking care of his widow. I thought I was doing the right thing, even when it cost me college, career opportunities, relationships, and ultimately my marriage. But I was never taking care of my mother. I was being used by her, and she knew the entire time that there was an expiration date on her need to pretend to tolerate my presence. I want to see the house, I say suddenly. Miss Miller, perhaps it would be wise to— I want to see my house, right now. Mr. Robinson glances at his watch. It's nearly noon. Your mother is likely to be home. Good. I want to talk to her. I'm not sure that's advisable in your current emotional state. I stand up and start gathering the documents. Mr. Robinson, with all due respect, I've been advisable my entire life. I've been reasonable and understanding and patient and self-sacrificing. And where has it gotten me? Divorced, homeless, and betrayed by literally everyone I thought I could trust. He sighs and opens his desk drawer, pulling out a set of keys. These are the original keys to the house. They should still work. The locks your mother changed were just the deadbolts. I stare at the keys in his palm. They're worn and scratched, familiar in a way that makes my chest tight. Dad's keys to Dad's house, which is now my house. There's one more thing you should know before you go, Mr. Robinson says as I pocket the keys. Your mother has been receiving monthly payments from the trust for the past 13 years. I freeze. What? Your father set up a separate provision to ensure your mother could maintain the house and cover basic living expenses. She's been receiving $2,000 a month since his death. The room tilts sideways. $2,000 a month. For 13 years. $312,000 in total, yes. And I've been sending her money, paying for her groceries, her utilities, her car repairs. I've been supplementing an income she already had because she told me she couldn't afford to live on her own. Mr. Robinson nods grimly. I'm afraid so. She's been stealing from me. Not just using me, actively stealing from me. The monthly payments were intended to ensure you weren't burdened with supporting her. Yes, I'm not angry anymore. I'm beyond angry. I'm in some kind of emotional stratosphere where rage becomes clarity, where betrayal becomes power. I'll need documentation of those payments, I say, my voice steady for the first time since I walked into this office. Of course. May I ask why? Because I'm going to get every penny back, with interest. The drive to the house, my house, takes 20 minutes, but it feels like hours. I keep replaying conversations with my mother over the years, looking for clues I missed, signs that she was lying to me. Ashley, honey, I just don't know how I'm going to make the mortgage payment this month. There was no mortgage. Dad paid off the house in 2009. The property taxes have gone up again. I'm going to have to choose between that and fixing the air conditioner. The trust was paying her more than enough to cover property taxes and home repairs. I hate asking you for money, sweetheart, but the car is making that noise again, and you know I can't afford to take it to the shop. She could afford a new car every year with what she was receiving from the trust. Every guilt trip, every tearful phone call, every time she made me feel selfish for wanting to use my own money on myself instead of helping her out. It was all lies, calculated, deliberate lies designed to keep me trapped and useful. When I pull into the driveway, her car is there, just like Mr. Robinson predicted. The front yard looks exactly the same as it did yesterday when I was pounding on the door, begging to be let into my own house. The garbage bags that contained my life are gone. She probably had them hauled away with the trash. I sit in my car for a moment, holding Dad's keys and thinking about what I want to say. Then I realize that I don't want to say anything. I want to listen. I want to watch her scramble to explain herself when she realizes that her careful plan has blown up in her face. The key turns easily in the front door lock. The house smells like lavender air freshener and the coffee Mom drinks, some expensive brand she always claimed was a splurge she couldn't really afford. Mom? I call out as I step into the entryway. Ashley? Her voice comes from the kitchen, and I can hear the panic in it. How did you get in here? I told you not to come back. I find her standing at the kitchen sink, wearing a bathrobe even though it's the middle of the day. She looks older than I remember, more fragile, but there's something in her eyes that I've never noticed before, something calculating. We need to talk, I say. There's nothing to talk about. I want you out of my house. Your house? I pull out the property deed and set it on the kitchen table. Margaret, this isn't your house. It never was. Her face goes completely white. What is that? It's the deed to this house, with my name on it. It's been in trust since Dad died, waiting for me to turn 30 and demonstrate independence from you. I pause, letting that sink in. Congratulations, Mom. Mission accomplished. She sits down heavily in one of the kitchen chairs, the same chairs we used to eat breakfast at when I was a kid, back when she still pretended to care about me. You don't understand, she says, but her voice is weak. Oh, I think I understand perfectly. You've been receiving $2,000 a month from Dad's trust for 13 years, haven't you? She doesn't answer, but she doesn't deny it either. And all those times you called me crying about money, all those times you made me feel guilty for wanting to spend my own paycheck on myself instead of helping you out. You were lying. You had plenty of money. You just wanted more. It wasn't like that, she says, but she won't meet my eyes. What was it like then? Explain it to me, Mom. Help me understand how a mother justifies stealing from her own daughter for 13 years. I wasn't stealing. That money was for household expenses, for maintaining the house. You were living here too, so you should have been contributing. I was living here because I gave up my entire future to take care of you. My voice is rising, and I don't care. I could have been in college, building a career, having a life. Instead, I was here, working dead-end jobs and giving you my paychecks because you convinced me you needed help. You think I wanted to be dependent on my teenage daughter, she snaps, and for a moment I see a flash of the old Margaret, the bitter woman who emerged after Dad died. You think I enjoyed having to ask you for money? But you didn't have to ask me for money. You had more coming in from the trust than I was making at my job." She stands up abruptly and walks to the window, looking out at the backyard where Dad used to grill hamburgers on Sunday afternoons. "You don't know what it was like after he died. You were young. You had your whole life ahead of you. I was 45 years old with no job skills and no prospects. That trust money felt like charity. So taking money from your teenage daughter felt better. You were contributing to the household where you lived. That's what adults do." "Adults, Mom. I wasn't an adult. I was 17 years old, and I should have been getting ready for college, not supporting my mother who was secretly receiving more money than most people make in a year." She turns back to face me, and I can see tears in her eyes. For a moment, I feel a familiar tug of sympathy, the same feeling that's kept me trapped in this toxic cycle for 13 years. But then she opens her mouth. "Well, now you have your precious money and your precious house. I hope it makes you happy, since it's more important to you than family." The sympathy dies instantly. More important than family? Mom, you threw me out. You changed the locks. You packed my things in garbage bags and left me homeless. You terminated your own phone number rather than risk having to talk to me. And you did all of this while sitting on information that you knew would leave me financially secure. I raised you for 18 years, and I took care of you for 13. We're even. You were my daughter. Taking care of me was your responsibility. And there it is. The truth that's been hiding under years of guilt trips and manipulation. In her mind, I owe her my entire life because she gave birth to me. Nothing I ever did was enough, because the debt can never be repaid. No, Mom. Taking care of you was my choice. A choice I made because I loved you, and I thought you needed me. But you didn't need me. You just wanted someone to control, someone to make you feel important and needed. That's not true, isn't it? When was the last time you asked me how I was doing? When was the last time you cared about my problems, my dreams, my life? When Brian and I got divorced, your first concern wasn't how I was handling it. It was how long I'd be staying in your house. She doesn't answer, because she can't. We both know that every conversation we've had in the past 13 years has been about her needs, her problems, her feelings. "I want you out," I say quietly. "Pack your things and leave. Ashley, please. This is my home. I've lived here for over 20 years, and I've been paying for you to live here, one way or another, for the past 13. But that's over now. Where am I supposed to go?" "I don't know, Mom. Figure it out. You're a grown woman, right? That's what you told me yesterday when I called asking for help." I walk to the front door and open it, then turn back to look at her. She's still standing in the kitchen, crying now, looking small and lost and old. For just a second, I waver. She is my mother, despite everything. She did raise me, even if she spent the past 13 years making me pay for it. But then I think about last night, sleeping in that awful motel room, surrounded by garbage bags full of my belongings. I think about Brian's smug text message offering to rent me a room in the house where he cheated on me. I think about 13 years of putting everyone else's needs first and having absolutely nothing to show for it. "You have until the end of the week," I say. "After that, I'm calling the police and having you removed for trespassing." I leave her standing there and walk out to my car. As I'm pulling out of the driveway, I see her in the kitchen window, watching me leave. She looks like she wants to say something, like she's finally realized what she's lost. But it's too late for apologies. It's too late for explanations. And it's definitely too late for forgiveness. I drive around Houston for 2 hours after leaving the house, not ready to go back and face whatever emotional wreckage Mom might have left behind. I need time to process everything that's happened, to figure out what comes next now that my entire understanding of the past 13 years has been turned upside down. Eventually, I find myself parked outside Jerry's auto shop, where Dad used to work. It's changed hands twice since he died, but the building looks exactly the same. A squat concrete block painted white, with 2 garage bays and a small office that always smelled like motor oil and coffee. I sit in my car and think about the man I thought I knew, Thomas Miller, devoted husband and father, hard-working mechanic who died too young and left his family struggling to survive. Except that version of Dad was only half true, wasn't it? He was devoted, and he did work hard, but he also spent 20 years secretly building a fortune while watching his wife and daughter scrape by. My phone rings, interrupting my brooding. It's Mr. Robinson. "Miss Miller, I wanted to check on you. How did the conversation with your mother go?" "About as well as you'd expect. She's got until the end of the week to move out." "I see. And how are you feeling about everything?" It's a surprisingly personal question from a lawyer who barely knows me, but something in his tone suggests he genuinely cares about the answer. Honestly, I feel like I've been living someone else's life for 13 years, like I've been reading from a script that everyone else knew was fiction, but nobody bothered to tell me. That's understandable. Your father anticipated that you might feel that way. He left something for you, actually. Something beyond the trust and the house. What kind of something? A letter. He asked me to give it to you after the trust was activated, and you'd had time to process the initial shock. Would you like to see it? Yes. Can I come by your office? Actually, I was thinking of something less formal. There's a coffee shop on Main Street called The Daily Grind. Could you meet me there in about an hour? I agree, and spend the rest of the afternoon driving through neighborhoods where I used to live, past schools I attended, by the park where Dad taught me to ride a bicycle. It's like taking a tour of a life that wasn't quite real, looking at all the places where I made decisions based on information I now know was incomplete. The Daily Grind is one of those trendy coffee shops with exposed brick walls and reclaimed wood tables, the kind of place that charges $5 for a cup of coffee and makes you feel sophisticated for paying it. Mr. Robinson is already there when I arrive, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups and a manila envelope. I took the liberty of ordering you a latte, he says as I sit down. I hope that's all right. Thank you. I stare at the envelope, which has my name written on it in Dad's familiar handwriting. How long have you been holding on to that? 13 years, 2 months, and 16 days. The specificity of his answer surprises me. You've been counting. Your father was very explicit about when this letter should be delivered. He made me promise to wait until you were truly free from your mother's influence, no matter how long that took. He slides the envelope across the table. He was worried it might take decades. He never imagined it would happen so precisely on your 30th birthday. I turn the envelope over in my hands, feeling the weight of it. It's thick, several pages at least. Did you read it? I ask. No. Your father sealed it in front of me and asked me not to open it under any circumstances. He said it was meant for you, and you alone. I take a sip of the latte, buying time. I'm not sure I'm ready to hear from Dad right now. I'm still too angry, too confused about his motives. Part of me wants to tear open the envelope immediately, and part of me wants to throw it away unread. Can I ask you something, Mr. Robinson? As someone who knew my father personally, of course, do you think he was right? To keep all of this secret? To let Mom and me struggle when he could have prevented it? Mr. Robinson removes his glasses and cleans them again. That same gesture he made in his office earlier. That's a complicated question, Miss Miller. Your father was trying to solve a problem that had no perfect solution. What do you mean? He loved your mother deeply, but he also recognized that she had a tendency to become dependent on others, rather than developing her own strength. And he could see that you had a generous heart that would make you vulnerable to being taken advantage of. So he decided to manipulate both of us. He decided to try to engineer a situation where you would both be forced to become self-reliant. Whether you call that manipulation or protection probably depends on your perspective. I think about that for a moment. What was he like when he came to see you? I mean, what was his emotional state? Conflicted. Deeply conflicted. He knew that what he was doing would cause pain in the short term, but he believed it was necessary for everyone's long-term well-being. He spent a lot of time asking me about the ethics of what he was planning. And what did you tell him? I told him that parents face impossible choices all the time. Sometimes loving someone means making decisions they won't understand or appreciate until much later, if ever. I opened the envelope carefully, trying not to tear Dad's handwriting. Inside are 4 handwritten pages, front and back, covered in the neat printing I remember from birthday cards and grocery lists. My dearest Ashley. It begins, and I have to stop reading because my eyes are filling with tears. Take your time, Mr. Robinson says gently. Oh, I'm in no hurry. I wipe my eyes and start again. My dearest Ashley, if you're reading this, it means that 2 things have happened. You've turned 30, and your mother has finally pushed you away. I hope I'm wrong about the second part, but I fear I'm not. By now you know about the money in the house, and you're probably angry with me for keeping secrets. You have every right to be. I want you to understand why I did what I did, even if you never forgive me for it. When you were born, you were the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. You came into this world with your eyes wide open, looking around like you were already curious about everything. The nurse said she'd never seen a baby so alert so soon after birth. This one's going to be special, she said. And she was right. You were special, Ashley. Not just because you were my daughter, but because of who you are as a person. Even as a little girl, you were always trying to take care of everyone else. You'd share your toys with kids who didn't have any. You'd comfort your friends when they were sad. You'd help me in the garage even when you'd rather be playing. Your mother used to worry that you were too giving, too willing to put others first. And she's going to get taken advantage of, she'd say. And I'd tell her that kindness wasn't a flaw. But deep down, I shared her concern. Then I got sick, and I saw my fears coming true in real time. I watched you change your entire future to take care of your mother and me. I watched you give up college, give up your dreams, give up your chance to build your own life. And I knew that if I died without doing something to change the situation, you'd spend the rest of your life being someone else's caretaker, instead of living for yourself. I also knew your mother well enough to know that she wouldn't let you go willingly. She needed you too much, depended on your strength too much. The only way she'd ever release you was if she was forced to, and even then only if she knew you'd be okay without her. So I made a plan. I started investing every penny I could spare, learning everything I could about the stock market, about building wealth. I worked overtime whenever it was available, took on side jobs, sold things we didn't need. Your mother thought I was just being responsible, saving for retirement and emergencies. What I was really doing was building you an escape hatch. I set up the trust with very specific conditions because I needed to ensure that the money would only be released when you were truly ready to be independent. If I just left it to you outright, your mother would have found a way to claim some of it for herself, and you would have let her because that's who you are, generous to a fault. The monthly payments to your mother were meant to ensure that she could survive without burdening you financially. I never intended for her to use that money and still ask you for more, but I'm not surprised that she did. Your mother has always been very good at justifying her own needs. I know that learning about these arrangements probably makes you feel manipulated, and I'm sorry for that. I never wanted to control your life. I wanted to give you the freedom to choose your own path without the weight of obligation holding you back. By the time you read this, you'll have discovered that your mother is capable of surviving on her own, even if she prefers not to. You'll know that you don't owe her your entire life as payment for being born, and hopefully, you'll have the resources to build whatever future you want for yourself. I'm sorry I couldn't be there to help you through this transition. I'm sorry I couldn't explain my reasoning while I was alive. And I'm especially sorry for any pain my decisions have caused you. But I'm not sorry for wanting you to be free. Use this money wisely, sweetheart. Travel, if you want to. Go to college, if that's still something you'd like to do. Start a business. Buy a house somewhere new. Fall in love with someone who deserves you. Have children, if you want them. Write the book you used to talk about writing. Do whatever makes you happy, Ashley. For the first time in your adult life, you can make decisions based solely on what you want, not on what other people need from you. That's all I ever wanted for you, the freedom to choose your own happiness. I love you more than you'll ever know, and I'm proud of the woman you've become, even though I know the path to get there was harder than it should have been. Live well, my darling girl. Live for yourself. All my love. Dad P. S. Check the safety deposit box at First National Bank. Box 247. The key is taped under the drawer in my old workbench in the garage. There are some things there that belong to your grandmother that I wanted you to have. I'm crying openly now, not caring that we're in a public place or that Mr. Robinson is watching me fall apart. The letter explains everything and nothing, answers questions I didn't know I had while raising a dozen new ones. He really did love me, I say, my voice thick with tears. Very much, Mr. Robinson confirms. Every decision he made was motivated by that love, even the ones that seemed cruel. I wasted so many years being angry with him for dying and leaving us to struggle. You weren't struggling because he abandoned you, Miss Miller. You were struggling because your mother chose to let you struggle even though she had the means to prevent it. I fold the letter carefully and put it back in the envelope. I need to go to the bank, the safety deposit box. Yes. And then I need to figure out what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. Mr. Robinson reaches into his briefcase and pulls out another set of papers. Before you go, there are a few more things we need to discuss. The trust funds need to be transferred to accounts in your name, and there are some tax implications we should address. For the next hour, we go through the practical details of inheriting a fortune. It's surreal, signing papers that will give me access to more money than I've ever imagined having, while my coffee grows cold and other customers chat about their ordinary problems at nearby tables. When we're finished, Mr. Robinson walks me to my car. Miss Miller, can I offer you some unsolicited advice? Please, don't make any major decisions for at least a month. What you've experienced in the past 48 hours would be traumatic under the best circumstances. Give yourself time to process everything before you decide how to use your new freedom. I thank him and drive home. To my house, I remind myself, wondering if Mom has started packing, or if she's still in denial about having to leave. Part of me hopes she's gone already, that I can walk into an empty house and start fresh without having to deal with any more confrontations. But as I turn into the driveway, I can see her silhouette moving around in the kitchen. She's still there, and we're going to have to face each other again. I sit in my car for a few minutes, rereading parts of Dad's letter and trying to decide how I want to handle this next conversation. I'm not as angry as I was this morning. Dad's words have helped me understand the bigger picture, but I'm also not ready to forgive her for 13 years of lies and manipulation. When I finally go inside, I find Mom sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of tea, looking like she's been waiting for me. "I was wondering when you'd come back," she says. "This is my house, Mom. I don't need permission to come and go." She flinches at the coldness in my voice, but she doesn't argue. "I've been thinking about what you said earlier, about me stealing from you. And you were right. I had money from the trust, more than enough to live on. I didn't need the extra money you were sending me. It's not quite an apology, but it's closer to an admission of guilt than I expected to get from her. So why did you take it anyway?" She's quiet for a long time, staring into her tea like it might have answers. "Because I was angry," she finally says. "Angry at your father for dying and leaving me alone. Angry at the world for being unfair. Angry at you for being young and having your whole life ahead of you while mine felt over. So you decided to punish me for having a future. I decided to make you understand what sacrifice felt like. Your father and I sacrificed plenty for you over the years. Putting off vacations so we could buy you clothes, working extra hours to pay for your school activities, giving up things we wanted so you could have what you needed. Mom, that's called being a parent. You don't get to collect interest on the cost of raising your own child. Don't I? I spent 18 years putting your needs first. Didn't I earn the right to have someone put my needs first for a while? And there's the heart of it, the twisted logic that's been driving her behavior for 13 years. In her mind, parenthood is a loan that must be repaid with interest, and I've been in debt to her since the day I was born. You earned the right to be loved and cared about, I say, but you didn't earn the right to steal my 20s from me. I never asked you to give up college. You didn't have to ask. You made it impossible for me to leave by making me believe you couldn't survive without me. She doesn't have an answer for that, because we both know it's true. I found something today, I tell her, pulling out Dad's letter. He left me an explanation for everything. Her face goes pale. What kind of explanation? The kind that makes it clear how much he loved both of us, even when he was making decisions we didn't understand. I don't read her the letter. It feels too private, too precious to share with someone who's spent 13 years proving she doesn't deserve Dad's forgiveness. But I tell her the general outline, about how he knew she would struggle to let me go, about how the money was meant to ensure we could both be independent. He thought I was weak, she says when I finish. He thought you were hurt. There's a difference, is there? Because right now I feel pretty weak and pretty ashamed. Ashamed enough to apologize, actually apologize, not just admit you were wrong. She looks at me for a long moment, and I can see her weighing her options. She could double down on her victimhood, could find a way to make this about how unfair life has been to her, or she could take responsibility for the choices she's made. "I'm sorry, Ashley," she says finally, and her voice breaks on my name. "I'm sorry for taking your money when I didn't need it. I'm sorry for making you feel guilty about wanting your own life. I'm sorry for throwing you out instead of talking to you about what I was feeling. It's not enough. 13 years of lies and manipulation can't be erased with one apology, no matter how sincere it sounds. But it's a start. Thank you," I say. "That means something. Does it mean enough for you to let me stay?" I've been dreading this question all day, because I knew it was coming and I knew what my answer would be. "No, Mom, it doesn't." She nods like she expected that answer, but I can see the disappointment in her eyes. "I need space," I continue. "I need time to figure out who I am when I'm not constantly worried about taking care of you. And you need to figure out who you are when you're not depending on me to solve your problems. Where am I supposed to go? I don't know, but you've got $2,000 a month coming in, which is more than a lot of people live on. Figure it out. The trust payments stop now that you've inherited everything, don't they?" I realize I don't actually know the answer to that question. I'll check with Mr. Robinson. But even if they do, You've received over $300,000 over the past 13 years. If you invested any of it, or if you have any savings, I don't. She looks embarrassed. I spent it all. On what? Living. The house payments might have been covered, but there were other expenses. Food, utilities, car payments, insurance, clothes, entertainment. I stare at her, doing quick math in my head. $2,000 a month should have been more than enough to cover all of those expenses and still have money left over for savings. You spent $300,000 on living expenses for one person. It wasn't just living expenses. I helped your Aunt Linda when she lost her job. I donated to the church. I took a few trips. You took trips. While I was eating ramen noodles for dinner so I could send you grocery money. They weren't expensive trips. Just weekend getaways with Linda. Or that cruise I took with the church group. The casual way she mentions vacations she took with money that was supposed to ensure I didn't have to support her makes me want to scream. But I don't. I'm too tired for more anger. You have until Sunday, I tell her. That gives you 5 days to find somewhere to go. Ashley, please. 5 days, Mom. That's more time than you gave me. I walk upstairs to my childhood bedroom, my bedroom now, in my house, and close the door behind me. Through the thin walls, I can hear her moving around downstairs, probably starting to pack. I sit on my bed and look around the room that hasn't changed since I was 17. The same purple walls, the same posters of bands I used to love, the same bookshelf full of novels I devoured in high school. It's like a time capsule of the person I used to be before I became someone else's caretaker. For the first time in 13 years, I can be that person again. I can read books for pleasure instead of falling asleep over financial statements. I can travel to places I've only seen in pictures. I can go back to school if I want to, or start a business, or just spend a year figuring out what makes me happy. The possibilities are overwhelming and terrifying and wonderful all at once. I pull out my phone and start making a list of things I want to do with my new freedom. It's a long list. 3 months later, I'm sitting in a cafe in downtown Austin, working on my laptop and occasionally glancing up at the university campus visible through the window. At 30 years old, I'm officially a college freshman again, or rather, for the first time. I enrolled in the University of Texas journalism program, the same degree I'd planned to pursue 13 years ago before life got in the way. It feels surreal to be here, carrying textbooks and arguing about assignments with classmates who are young enough to be my younger siblings. But it also feels right in a way that nothing has felt right in years. The transition wasn't easy. Those first few weeks after Mom moved out were some of the strangest of my life. I'd wake up in the morning expecting to make coffee for 2 people, then remember that I only needed to make enough for myself. I'd find myself checking my phone for texts about bills that needed paying or errands that needed running, forgetting that I was no longer responsible for anyone's life but my own. Mom found an apartment across town, a small 1-bedroom place that she could afford on her Social Security, and the part-time job she finally got at a local bookstore. We don't talk often, but we do talk. Stilted conversations every few weeks where she updates me on her life and I share carefully edited versions of mine. It's not the relationship either of us probably hoped for, but it's honest in a way our relationship never was before. She never did apologize for the years of manipulation. Not really. But she did pay me back, not the money she took, but something more valuable. 2 weeks after she moved out, she called me with information about Dad's safety deposit box that she'd been keeping secret. "There's more than just your grandmother's jewelry in there," she told me. "Your father kept journals, pages and pages of them, documenting his investment strategies, his thoughts about the trust, his concerns about our family dynamics. I read them after he died, and I didn't want you to see how much he worried about me becoming dependent on you." Those journals filled in gaps in Dad's story that his letter couldn't address. They showed me a man who agonized over every decision, who second-guessed himself constantly, who spent sleepless nights wondering if he was doing the right thing for his family. Reading his private thoughts helped me understand that his choices came from love, not manipulation. They also revealed something else. Dad had been tracking his investments much more carefully than Mr. Robinson initially realized. The $1.7 million was just the beginning. Over the years, the trust had been automatically reinvesting dividends and profits, and the account had grown to nearly $2.3 million by the time I inherited it. I used some of that money to buy Mom a car, not out of guilt or obligation, but because I wanted to. It felt good to choose to help her, rather than feeling trapped into helping her. There's a difference between generosity and exploitation, and I'm finally old enough to understand it. I also used the money to make some changes to the house. I converted Dad's old workshop into a home office, painted over my teenage bedroom's purple walls, and turned Mom's room into a library. It's my house now, truly mine, and I want it to reflect who I am rather than who I used to be. But the biggest change wasn't what I did with the money, it was what I did with my time. I started therapy, something I probably should have done years ago. Dr. Martinez helped me work through 13 years of suppressed anger and resentment, helped me understand the difference between being loving and being used, helped me figure out what I actually wanted from life when I wasn't busy trying to meet everyone else's needs. I also started dating again, though that's been a slower process. It turns out that when you've spent your entire adult life in relationships where you give more than you receive, it takes time to learn how to recognize healthy partnerships. I went on a few dates with men who reminded me too much of Brian, charming, confident guys who seemed more interested in what I could do for them than who I was as a person. Then I met David. David is a professor in the English department, 15 years older than me, divorced with 2 teenage kids who live with him half the time. He's quiet where Brian was loud, thoughtful where Brian was impulsive, and genuinely interested in my thoughts and feelings rather than just waiting for his turn to talk. Our first date was supposed to be coffee but we ended up talking for 6 hours. He told me about his divorce, about the challenges of co-parenting, about his research on contemporary American literature. I told him about going back to school, about my complicated family situation, about my dreams of maybe writing a book someday. "What would you write about?" he asked. "I don't know yet. Maybe about what it's like to discover that your entire life has been built on secrets and lies. Maybe about learning how to live for yourself instead of for other people." That sounds like a story worth telling. We've been seeing each other for 2 months now, and it's different from anything I've experienced before. He doesn't need me to fix his problems or manage his emotions. He doesn't expect me to rearrange my life around his schedule. He seems to genuinely like me as I am, not as who I could be if I just tried a little harder to meet his expectations. It's terrifying and wonderful and completely unfamiliar. "You look happy," he said last week, as we were walking around the campus after one of his evening classes. I am happy. It's weird. Weird how? I spent so many years thinking that happiness was selfish, that if I was enjoying myself, it meant I wasn't doing enough for other people. I'm still learning how to be happy without feeling guilty about it. And how's that going? Better every day. Today is one of those better days. I'm working on an assignment for my investigative journalism class, a profile of a local nonprofit that helps women escape domestic violence. It's challenging work that requires me to interview people about traumatic experiences, but it's also deeply meaningful. For the first time in my life, I feel like I'm using my natural empathy for something constructive, rather than just letting it make me vulnerable to manipulation. My phone buzzes with a text from David. "How's the writing going?" "Still on for dinner tonight." I smile and text back. "Writing is good. Looking forward to dinner. Your place or mine?" "Yours, if that's okay. I want to see what you've done with the library." I finish my assignment and pack up my laptop, looking forward to the drive home to my house, where I live alone by choice rather than by abandonment, home to a life that I'm building for myself, based on my own values and desires, rather than other people's expectations. The drive from Austin to Houston gives me time to think about how much has changed in such a short time. 3 months ago, I was sleeping in a seedy motel, convinced that I was fundamentally unlovable because the people who were supposed to care about me had thrown me away. Now I'm pursuing an education I've wanted for 13 years, living in a house that actually belongs to me, dating a man who treats me like an equal partner rather than a convenient caretaker. I think about Dad's letter often, especially the part where he told me to live for myself. It sounds simple, but it's actually incredibly complicated when you've never done it before. Learning to prioritize your own needs and desires requires practice, especially when you've been trained to see self-care as selfishness. But I'm getting better at it. I'm learning to say no without feeling guilty. I'm learning to spend money on things I want rather than things I think I should want. I'm learning to make plans based on what sounds fun rather than what sounds responsible. I'm learning to trust my own judgment instead of constantly seeking approval from others. When I pull into my driveway, I see David's car already there. He has a key now, something that would have terrified me 6 months ago, but feels natural now. He's probably in the kitchen, starting dinner and reading one of the books he's always carrying around with him. I find him exactly where I expected, standing at the stove stirring something that smells amazing, with a paperback novel open on the counter beside him. "What are we having?" I ask, wrapping my arms around his waist from behind. Risotto with mushrooms and asparagus. How was class? Good. Challenging. I interviewed 3 women today who survived abusive relationships, and their stories were, I pause, looking for the right words. Inspiring isn't the right word, because what they went through was awful, but hearing how they found the strength to leave, how they rebuilt their lives from nothing, it gives me hope for people in impossible situations. David turns in my arms and kisses my forehead. Sounds like you might have some personal connection to that topic. Maybe a little. He knows about my marriage to Brian, about the years of emotional manipulation disguised as love. He knows about Mom and the financial exploitation and psychological control. He doesn't try to fix any of it or offer unsolicited advice. He just listens and supports me as I continue to process and heal. I have something to tell you, I say as we sit down to eat. I heard from Mr. Robinson today. Oh, good news or bad news? Good news, I think. The trust provisions included something I didn't know about. Dad set aside money for my education. Not just college, but graduate school too, if I want it. Apparently, he always hoped I'd become a writer, and he wanted to make sure I had the resources to pursue that dream. That's amazing, Ashley. Are you thinking about graduate school? Maybe. Not right away. I want to finish my bachelor's degree first. Maybe work as a journalist for a few years to gain experience. But knowing the option is there, knowing I don't have to worry about student loans or choosing between my education and financial stability, it feels like freedom. Your father sounds like he was a remarkable man. He was complicated. His methods were questionable, but his motives were pure. He wanted me to have choices, and now I do. After dinner, we sit in my newly converted library, David reading his novel while I work on revisions to my profile article. It's comfortable and domestic and entirely chosen, which makes it feel precious in a way that my marriage never did. Around 10 p.m., my phone rings. It's Mom. "Hi, honey," she says, and her voice sounds lighter than it has in years. I hope I'm not calling too late. "It's fine, Mom. What's up?" "I wanted to tell you that I got promoted at the bookstore. They're making me assistant manager, which comes with a raise and health insurance." "That's wonderful. How do you feel about it?" "Proud, actually. It's the first time in 20 years that I've earned something through my own efforts, rather than having it given to me." There's a subtext there that we both understand. She's referring to the trust money, to the years of dependency that stunted her growth as much as mine. "I'm proud of you too," I tell her, and I mean it. "Ashley, there's something else. I've been going to therapy. This surprises me more than the promotion. Mom has always been skeptical of mental health treatment, dismissive of the idea that talking to a stranger could solve anything. How's that going?" "It's hard. Really hard. I'm having to face a lot of things about myself that I've been avoiding for years, but I think it's helping. My therapist says I have something called complex grief. Basically, I never properly processed your father's death, so I got stuck in anger and blame. That makes sense. She also says I used you as what she calls a security blanket, someone I could control and depend on so I didn't have to face my own fears about being alone. I don't say anything, because what is there to say? We both know it's true. "I know I can't undo 13 years of treating you badly," she continues, "but I want you to know that I'm working on becoming the kind of person who deserves to have you in her life. Mom, you don't have to say anything. You don't owe me forgiveness or a relationship or anything else. I just wanted you to know that I understand what I did wrong, and I'm trying to do better." After we hang up, David looks up from his book. How do you feel about that conversation?" "Hopeful, I think. Not ready to trust her completely, but hopeful that maybe we can have a healthier relationship someday." "That sounds reasonable. The weird thing is, I think Dad would be proud of both of us. He wanted us to learn how to be independent, how to stand on our own feet, in a really twisted way. His plan worked. Even the part where your mother had to hurt you to push you away. I consider this carefully. I think Dad knew that Mom would never let me go voluntarily. He knew that the only way I'd ever be truly free was if she forced me out. He just didn't anticipate how cruel she'd be about it. And if he had, if he'd known she would throw you out with no warning, pack your things in garbage bags, change her phone number to avoid talking to you, I don't think it would have changed his decision. He would have hated that part of it, but he would have seen it as necessary pain that led to long-term gain. Was he right? I look around my library, at the books I bought because I wanted to read them, at the comfortable chair I chose because it made me happy, at the man beside me who loves me without trying to change me. "Yeah," I say. "I think he was." 6 months ago, I thought my life was over. My marriage had failed. My mother had abandoned me, and I was sleeping in a motel room with all my possessions stuffed into garbage bags. I felt like a complete failure, like someone who was fundamentally unworthy of love or respect. Now I know the truth. I wasn't a failure. I was trapped by my own generosity, by other people's selfishness, by a family dynamic that required me to stay small so that others could feel big. Dad's money didn't just give me financial freedom, it gave me the space and time to figure out who I am, when I'm not busy being who everyone else needs me to be. And it turns out, I like this person I'm becoming. She's stronger than I expected, braver than I imagined, and finally ready to live the life she was always meant to live. I still get that text message from Brian sometimes. Different variations of the same theme. Hey, how are you doing? Jessica and I broke up. If you want to grab coffee sometime. No hard feelings, right? I delete them without responding. There are no hard feelings, but there's no room in my new life for people who see me as a backup plan or a convenience. There's only room for people who see me as I actually am. Ashley Miller, journalism student, daughter of Thomas Miller, owner of her own house and her own future. For the first time in 30 years, that's enough.